Hi, I'm Thomas Yokomenis. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the influenza of 1918. So, the influenza of 1918 also was known as the Spanish influenza or the Spanish flu. It's considered one of the worst pandemics to date. It's taught us the importances of social distancing and proper hygiene to decrease the spread of the illness. Um, no one can agree on the mortality rate for this flu. Um, Studies have shown between 21.5 million and up to 50 million deaths. And that can still be a conservative estimate due to recordings not being not being complete, or just misdiagnosed, or deaths not being recorded. The virus actually started in the United States at a military base in Kansas called Camp Function in March. As soldiers traveled to the Midwest and the Southeast for training, so did the virus. By the end of April, the virus became an epidemic, with soldiers and civilians getting sick. When joining the war in Europe, the U.S. traveled on crowded transport ships to France, spreading the disease even more on each ship. The influenza of 1918 came in 3 waves. The first started in the U.S. in the spring. The second was in France midsummer, and the third occurred in the winter between 1918 and 1919. The second wave had the highest mortality rate, as it traveled from France through Europe, out of North Africa, China, India, and then into Australia. The second wave had the highest mortality rate, and it really targeted between 20 and 40-year-olds, but the 35-year-olds were hit the hardest. The age group that was below, 20 and below, were usually able to recover. The mortality rate and illness rate both had an impact on the war. Battalions of soldiers too weak to fight avoided battles that might have changed the course of the war or ended it sooner. When the war was over and the Paris peace treaties were held, President Wilson came down with the flu after visiting the troops. Reported as a cold, it was hidden from everyone. But as the result of him being sick, he missed very important talks and decisions about Germany, which then later led to being involved in World War II. So countries in every country except for Spain would not allow reporting of the virus. So the public didn't have a warning of or like any knowledge of this virus that could affect them. This was because the countries didn't want to appear weak to their enemies or affect the war in any way. The U.S. even passed the Sedition Act of 1919, which said that anything written that the government thought was against the war the war effort could be considered a crime. So the troops being ill with the virus were not reported, and the public's illness was downplayed. Spain, who remained neutral during the war, did not censor their newspapers at all and reported cases of the virus. After that, they were then blamed for being the origin of the pandemic, and this is how it became known as the Spanish flu. Thank you very much. Again, this is Thomas Yokobinis. Thank you for listening. Stay safe.